Today I'm being joined by the coach of the North Melbourne VFLW side, Brett Gourley. Brett, thanks for coming on.
No problems, Cooper. Thanks so much for having me on.
No worries. Now, Brett, how did the coaching journey start? We've obviously been an AFLW assistant coach at the Bombers and at North Melbourne as well. Vic Metro coaching the under-18 boys side. It's gone a long way, Brett. So how did it all start for you?
Well, I guess my coaching journey started a long time ago now. I was originally a tennis coach, so I coached tennis for about 7 years and had a bit of an opportunity to jump across into footy. And probably footy was always my first love, but I was a better tennis player than I was footballer. So when an opportunity came for me to jump across to footy coaching, coached at VFLW under-18s, did assistant coaching there for a couple of years, and then was head coach there for the next 4 years after that. So sort of, a fantastic local club at VFLW years, and they really supported me to start my coaching journey. And fortunate enough to have a bit of success there. We went 6 grand finals and then had 5 premierships in that time as well, which was great. So sort of got me a little bit of contact with Calder Cannons. And just jumped across to Calder Cannons for about 4 years over there. And then an opportunity came up at North Melbourne. So they reached out and went across there. Then had a few other little things along the way, and done the All-Stars games, and as you mentioned, Vic Metro as well. And all fantastic experiences. Went across to Essendon for their very first season as well in AFLW. That was an amazing experience. And then back to North for the last couple of years as well. So it's been a ride. It's been an amazing journey, but I'm really happy. And I've said that as long as I enjoy it, I'll continue on with it.
For sure. Obviously, at that time when you went from Vic Metros and all the other accolades you had at that point to then jump into AFLW as assistant coach of the Bombers, as you mentioned in their first season, how was that first jump for you? Were you a bit nervous? I know assistant coach, it doesn't matter what role, you're stepping up from other levels to that, and then it must feel a bit different and more responsibility too.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that particularly once you get into an AFL club, you sort of realise the enormity of it. It's not just coaching football. There's so much more to it, and I think particularly now, head coaching now as well, you sort of realise that so much of your job is not actually coaching a football team. There's a lot of other things that come with it, but that's all part of it. But I think once I jumped across to North Melbourne, you sort of get a really clear understanding of the enormity of the whole club, and it's just a massive business, really. So, very, very fortunate to be in the position that I am, and really grateful for people that have given me the opportunities along the way.
For sure. Obviously, that time in North Melbourne, you were obviously no stranger to North Melbourne, being in the AFLW side of assistant coaching, and then obviously now being the VFLW head coach. When you mentioned just briefly then when you joined them, how was that announcement kind of being told that you would be the VFLW head coach?
Oh, it was great. I still remember I was over, so I was the AFLW head of development there at the time, and we were playing a game back end of the 2023 season. We're over in Adelaide, and I remember sitting down with Nathan Rovat, who was the footy manager at the time, and Darren Crocker, and we went over a coffee whilst we were over there. And that was it was a great conversation, because I'm always looking to improve and continuing to work out what's next for my coaching journey. And as you mentioned, I've done assistant coaching at that level for a while, so I was looking for something else to challenge myself, and I felt like this was going to be a really good fit for me in a fantastic and a really supportive club. So the decision itself was pretty easy. I had to get it ticked off at home to get across the line, and I've got 2 little boys at home, so just making sure that we can manage all that. But it is I'm so lucky to be at this club, and to have fantastic people around me who continue to support my growth and development as a coach has been amazing.
Sure. I'm not just saying this as John, but quite arguably North Melbourne could have the best women's sides, and you add in all the competitions line, AFLW and VFLW, considering how strong they have been in both competitions, where sure Melbourne and Adelaide and other sides of that have been strong, but then when they go to their affiliates, not so much. So why do you feel like North has been always so strong, so connected, and so well in the VFLW competition, considering also, unlike some of the other AFLW aligned clubs, you haven't been having many, if any, North Melbourne AFLW listed players play last season and this year while you've been in charge?
It's amazing to see the different strategies that clubs go with, and I look at it and go, I don't think people said, do you think it's the right way to go, or what would you do? And I think each club is at a different stage, and quite clearly North Melbourne in the AFLW space is a really well resourced, a really well run program, and I guess they're in that premiership window at the moment, being in the grand final for the last couple of years. So I think the strategy that we have as a club is a really good one and a really well thought out and thorough one. So I'm really pleased with what we've been able to come up with as a club. And I guess the other side to that is it gives our next rung of players, but beneath that, our VFLW crew, maximum exposure and opportunity to perform as well. So we don't have 12 changes each week coming in like some of these other clubs do. So I think for us, like it works really well. So it works really well in the VFLW space, but obviously, sadly, there's been some injuries and things in the VFLW to a couple of the AFLW listed players in the first few rounds. So I think that's a little bit part of it, and just making sure that we protect our AFLW players, but also the fact that we back in our AFLW program to best prepare them. And Croc and the team, Reece Harwood, who's out there as well. They just do a fantastic job of the way in which they prepare the players, and both through education wise, but also physically as well. And it's a really high quality and caliber of staff that they have out there. So we back them in to prepare the AFLW players the best they possibly can.
For sure. We're talking about, with players. You feel like that could help you with retaining players, Brett, or bringing other players along from other clubs to the VFLW list, knowing where you guys don't really play the AFLW list of players who've got better opportunity. You feel like that is part of a pull why you, outside of being a good side, to continue to pull players across, knowing that other clubs, when they bring AFLW listed players in, they're getting pushed down the order, the VFLW listed that is, and kind of helps your chances even more to recruit some more good players on top of who you already got.
Absolutely. From our perspective, I think it's a massive positive to the program that we have, because you look at the talent pool at that next level, you'd be hard pressed to find someone that's playing in the VFLW that if you gave them the opportunity to play AFLW, they wouldn't take it. So I think giving them maximum exposure is absolutely the right thing. And we're really proud of the fact that we do that. And we've never said that we'll take it off our list and we wouldn't do it, but it's just probably the space. We're not in that space at the moment. But I look at some of the other clubs and the way in which they do it, and you can't knock it, because I think that what they're doing is right for their programs at that time. In terms of recruitment wise, absolutely, I think it helps, because you're almost saying to these girls they're going to get games each week, and we're not going to have the influx of AFLW players. But I know that other clubs have tried to frame it as a positive in the past, and saying, you'll get to play with, Emily Bates, or you'll get to play with these types of players when they come back in as well. So there's positives and I guess, negatives to both ways, but each club sort of assesses what they're doing and does what's best for them.
For sure. As you mentioned, Box Hill with Emily Bates, with Hawthorn, they had so many play last year. I don't believe they played many, if any at all, in the first 3 rounds so far. And the side that comes to mind too is the Bulldogs. Like, they got a lot of young draftees that they picked up, for example, in the AFLW, and they've got them playing. Like, I know Elaine Griggs in her second year and being fantastic, and then there's Emma McDonald, a top draft pick as well. So I can kind of see the other side as well, about to give some young players, or the players that they didn't get. They were on AFLW lists last year. They weren't getting any games, or next to none. And so they're getting some games heading into a season as well, where you don't want to go a whole year with them playing nothing at all, or not from an official point of view anyway.
Absolutely. And you even look at the length of the AFLW season. It's it's only 11 games, so it's not a whole heap of footy that they're playing. So it's risk versus reward for each of those clubs. And I think that there's benefit to doing it for some of those clubs, and there's benefit to not doing it for others as well. So each club just weighs it up, and our club is one that's obviously at the moment, we didn't do it at all last year. I think we were the only AFLW aligned club that didn't do it last year. And I think clubs have maybe moved away from it. I know Box Hill loaded up a lot last year, but I don't think they've played anyone so far this year. I think having a new coach in Daniel Webster last year coming in, and probably trying to even Carlton probably did a fair bit more last year. I know they played a few this year as well, but just trying to establish a new game plan. Collingwood with Sam Wright across there as well. So I think, and I totally understand the reasons why they do it. And, it's risk versus reward. And I think that for a lot of the clubs, hopefully it speeds up their progress.
For sure. Now, last year, North Melbourne, in the VFLW side of things, that was so dominant, obviously winning the premiership against the Bulldogs. And that grand final, we'll go to that game in particular, Brett. Obviously, there was so much swings and roundabouts in that game. Obviously, you have a good lead. I was there personally, and I thought, you guys started off red hot, and that was going to be it. And then the Bulldogs, to their credit, they came back, and I think off the top of my head, it was level, or they might have hit a point ahead or something like that, late at 3/4 time or something like that. It must have got a bit of the jitters at that point, Brett, when thinking you had a good lead, and normally a team would hold on. And then they got ahead into their credit. But then again, late Nike to Jock, I know, scored some goals in the last one, had a great grand final, obviously, and then continued to propel and get the win in the end.
Yeah, look, it was an amazing day and such an incredible experience to be a part of. And I think that no matter whether we won or lost that game, I think it was always going to be something pretty special that I'd look back on, to be able to make a grand final. I guess my first season at VFLW level was really special, and really grateful to the people that helped out and contributed along the way. So we had a fantastic coaching group last year and support staff, and Christy Jenkins, who runs the program there, just does such an amazing job of preparing everybody as best as possible. The game itself was if you're writing a script for a game, it'd be right up there. And I remember talking to Nigel Carmody after the game, and he said, "Mate, that was just one of the best games of women's football that we've seen at this level." And he said, "Thanks for making it such a spectacle." And I was like, "Wait, the standard of the game, I thought was a real showcase of women's football." And I guess the storyline throughout the course of the game, how we got off to a fantastic start. So there was plenty of goals at the start of the game, and then the Dogs continued to come back at us, particularly in that third quarter. And, scores being level at three-quarter time, you couldn't write a better script for a grand final. So I remember saying to the girls at three-quarter time, like, this is exactly what we want. Like, we're in this position. We've worked really hard and we've earned this opportunity to be here. So don't shy away from it now. Let's stand up and have a real crack at it. And to their credit, like, the amount of times I've sort of given messages and it's always difficult to execute. It's always really easy to say what we need to do, but it doesn't always happen once you get back out there and they go to work. So it's tricky, but to the girls' credit, I mean, they just pulled it out exactly at the right time and they were able to execute what we spoke about. So, it's a special day for me, and I know for the whole club to be able to win that first VFLW premiership is something that I'll remember forever.
It could get even more better winning the AFLW grand final back to back for the club. That's what I'm more point about earlier about how strong the club is and winning both grand finals in the same season.
Absolutely. I mean, something that no club's ever been able to do before, and I think it just shows the caliber of the people that we have at the club. And I think that's the first part to it. You just got to get all those people right and all the key stakeholders right, involved in the club. And the people that have been there for a longer period than me have just done an incredible job of setting that club up for success. So really proud of what the AFLW crew has been able to do. And I've been there since 2019 and had a long-standing involvement with the AFLW program and a lot of their players. And to see them finally have the success that they've been working for. My first season there, we we made finals, and that second season, I think it was the second season, it was the third season of AFLW, that one, and then COVID came in, and we felt like we were in a really strong position to win it that year as well. But to finally have that success was, I think it makes it even sweeter when you've been working for it and wanting it for so long as well.
For sure, especially when too was the side they beat Brisbane the year before was that heartbreak under a goal, and then this year to get the revenge, not only to win the grand final, but then to do it to the side that did it to you last year.
Brisbane are always an incredibly difficult team to play. They bring such high energy, incredibly athletic, and against Brisbane that you're always going to be up for a fight. So no matter whether it's a grand final or not, it's always a tough battle against Brisbane. And I know we'd struggled against them for a while, but last year was the time that we started to get on top of them, particularly in that round one. I think it was the game that we played them or early in the season as well. So it was nice to get that monkey off the back a little bit early, but to get him in the grand final was pretty sweet as well. So it was good.
For sure. Now, obviously, from being the VFLW coach, obviously you never want to lose players. And unfortunately, players on AFLW lists have had, you mentioned like Emily Goff, for example, a long-term injury. So they need injury replacement players. And a name that hasn't officially been signed up yet, and I'm surprised wasn't picked up in last year's draft, is Nike to Jock. I mentioned her earlier. Obviously, you wouldn't want to lose it from a team's point of view, but how close do you feel like she's getting to that next level? Someone that I feel probably should be on the list already, and maybe with some of these club injury spaces available, and maybe one of those names get called out soon.
We're really well aware of the fact that we've got some talented players within our group, and any player that we chat to or we look at bringing into the club, we work with them around what they want to try and achieve, and so many of them want to get to AFLW, and we want to help support them on that journey. And I think that probably one of the most pleasing things for us is when we do. Last year we had Brooke Sheridan come off our list. I think it was round
Yes.
7, picked up by Essendon, and we celebrate that like we've won a grand final, because that's essentially we're changing players' lives, setting them up and their careers up. So for us, like, absolutely, we want to win, and we want to be the best possible team that we can be, but also like getting these players picked up and drafted to AFLW clubs. That's what we're here for as well. So absolutely, we want to be here to win, and we do our best to win every single week, but also really cognizant of the fact that setting players up for the rest of their lives if they can make a career out of this now. So it's a really special thing to be a part of, and hoping to have a few more picked up over the next couple of weeks as well from our side. Nike would be right up there in conversations. I know I've spoken to a few clubs about her already, and it's an incredible athlete. It's people ask me to describe her, and she's a really difficult one to describe, because what she can do is like nobody else. And if you watch her play, it's hard to take your eyes off her. So what she was able to do last season, I thought was incredible, and particularly in that grand final where, when we really needed her, she was able to step up, and she's just one that needs that chance at that next level. And if there's a club that's out there that's willing to take that chance, I'm sure that she'll reward them really well.
For sure. And obviously this year in your recruiting process, I want to kind of talk to you a little bit about your recruiting process. Obviously you brought in some good names and you've retained so many good players, but some names in particular I want to mention, Stella Reid and Jen Lawson-Tavern are 2 names. I know Tessa Boyd, former playing at Sandy as well, Southern Saints, whatever you want to call them now. But obviously some good players coming across, in particular Stella Reid and Jen Lawson-Tavern. What key contributors they've started the season so far, you will continue to be good players heading at the end. How did you get them both across the line, in particular some of the other players that have come from elsewhere? And what kind of tactics you try and pull to get people across? Like, what is your key to get people across?
Look, there's probably a few different ways we go about recruiting players. And all of those players you've mentioned have come to us in different ways. And, first of all, I remember winning the grand final last year, and a few hours after it, one of the footy staff said to us, "What do we need to do to win it again?" And the first thing I said was, "Let's get Tessa Boyd." So we had no idea. And, we talk about other players that we want to bring across, but sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. So Tessa was one that we thought would really fit well in our system. And a player that we thought could really contribute strongly to our program. So, we spoke to Tessa as early as we could, and she was probably the first one that we brought across. So we were extremely excited and happy to have Tessa as part of our program. And I think she's just been outstanding so far early in the season. So that's one way. We also have Flynn Loft, who's our recruiting manager at AFLW level, and he points players out to us and does it. He's an incredible operator and does such an amazing job. He's so thorough, and we have great communication with him. So he brings other players to our attention that might be of interest to him or to bring into the club. So there's a few others that have come across through him that way. Either through us doing our research at VFL level or also just players that we talk to within the program. And Jen Lawson-Tavern was one that came to us really highly recommended by a few people at the club, and played her 100th VFLW game on the weekend, which is a really special occasion. She was, I don't think I've ever had a player more highly recommended as a person from so many people that I'd spoken to. So, every club talks about bringing in really good people, but, I think that's absolutely something that we live and breathe. Someone like Jen was highly recommended. Stella was recommended to us from the AFLW crew, and we reached out to her to see where she was at. And I know that they'd had some interest in her at some point as well. And it's someone that they've been keeping a really close eye on. So Stella's another fantastic person and obviously a quality player. So, I'd be rapt if we lost all of those players and they went back up to AFLW level. And, as sad as it would be to lose them from our program, we're really excited to continue to support them on their journeys.
For sure, yeah. I thought, in particular, Jen Lawson-Tavern, I just couldn't believe, because I was at a fair few of Carlton's games at the back end of the year, and she was playing really well. And then it just confused me sometimes how you continuously get a game at AFLW level, do pretty well and keep your opponent goalless and everything like that, and then be let go. It just doesn't make sense. So I feel like it's a steal recruit for you guys for now, and potentially on a list elsewhere very soon.
Absolutely. And Jen was one that we actually didn't really reach out to until fairly late in the piece. And I heard that she was going somewhere else, so I didn't sort of realise that she was still available and looking to play. So, yeah, she was one that, as soon as we heard that she may be available and maybe interested in a chat, we got on the phone to her straight away. And, yeah, we're pretty quick to get her to put a contract in front of her. And, she's a fantastic person, but, what she's been able to do with our team so far this year has been outstanding. She's just such a rock down in defence. So, very fortunate to have Jen on our team. And, yeah, we're very, very lucky that she said yes to North Melbourne this year.
Sure. Obviously, the first two games to start this season almost had wins against Carlton and Williamstown, then a close loss on the weekend against the Bombers. How have you so far assessed the season? And then going to Box Hill this week, which will be another high clash as well.
Yeah, always nice to get a couple of wins on the board early. Yesterday, played the Bombers and probably just went away from our identity a little bit in the way we wanted to play in the first half. But, I felt like in the second half we were in particular able to get the game back on our terms, just weren't able to hit the scoreboard. And a few long points in there and a few rush behind. So we probably didn't use the footy well enough going forward. And then in that last quarter, we were able to sort of hit the front, I don't know, with about 5 minutes or something to go. And, I feel like the game was, Essendon were brilliant in the game and the way that they set up, I thought was outstanding. And we tried to tweak a few things in game and, unfortunately, we just couldn't get there in the end. We hit the front with a few minutes to go, but yeah, they managed to get one back on us right at the death. So that was a tough one yesterday, but I thought the first 2 weeks in particular were really solid. And the game against Carlton was I think they played 4 or 5 AFLW girls in there. So to get a win in that one was great. And Williamstown, we know, is always a really tough game, a really hard game to play. And Williamstown are a team that are really hardened and finals ready as well. I know that they've got some really quality recruits in their program as well this year. So that's always a tough one for us. And, looking at the results at the moment, you think, Box Hill's right there. I think they're 3-0 at the moment.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll come up against them. I think they've come up a 50-point win against Casey as well. So that'll be another really tough one for us this week, but we're excited for the challenge.
For sure. Some names I want to mention in the club that probably don't get talked about as much is Caitlin Fletcher. I believe she didn't play on the weekend, but someone I feel like started the season off really well because everyone will talk about, the names that are being on AFLW lists or were the best last year. But I just wanted to bring up her in particular. How do you feel like she's gone this year and how she's kind of stepped up her game as well?
Fletcher's been outstanding. As a 20-year-old to move into state and to come down here, not know anyone, live in a share house with a couple other girls. I think one girl from Saints and one for the Dogs I think she might be living with as well. And I remember the first Zoom that we had with her. I remember actually getting first sent I think it was a TikTok video that actually someone sent to me of her highlights. And I thought, this is how players are getting recruited now through TikTok videos. But she's that highlights video that I saw, I thought, I've seen enough. Like let's work hard to get this girl in our program. And she's just been incredible since she's came in. She's such a competitor, extremely tough, so strong. And I've got no doubt that when she gets her opportunity at AFLW level, she's just she's going to be outstanding because she's a very determined person. And to move into state as a 20-year-old just for footy, and I know that there's quite a few girls that have done that to come down and play VFLW. I mean, that's pretty amazing in itself to leave your family behind and pursue your passion in your career. And I know the type of person Fletch is, that when she gets that opportunity, she won't let it go. So yeah, she'll be great.
Sure, it's amazing that you mentioned, I had a good laugh when you mentioned TikTok videos to get back how they get recruited. So this is why when I tell players when I have them on here, and every time I put up a highlights package, I seem to put trailers out now with some of their best highlights. See, it does help. Some people say it shouldn't matter, but it does matter. If you just mention it there, that's how you can recruit people. Well, not the other way,
mate, I've had some I've had some funny videos sent to me in my time as coach. So I've had a whole stack of different things. But I think that's the space that women's footy is. It's getting more professional. It's getting there, but there's still so many hidden gems out there that we just don't know of. So the resources at AFLW level compared to AFL just aren't at the same level yet. So I'm always open to seeing new players, or if, hearing about new players that might be undiscovered yet. So the pathway now is so much stronger than it was a few years ago. I'm a school teacher outside of here, and when I first started teaching at the local high school here, there was 2 girls footy clubs around our area, and we had 2 girls within the whole school that played, and we were at a school of about 2,000. There's 2 girls within the whole school that played, and now we've got just every club has an AFLW program, has a girls program. So it's just blossomed and grown so much. So I think those pathways are connecting a lot more, and there's a lot more avenues, but it's absolutely always great to see little highlights, because there's always a few that we miss along the way.
For sure. Now, this was not planned at all until the moment you mentioned TikTok. I'm glad I got this set up, because this is not planned at all. Now, you mentioned Stella Reid. Now, while she was at Richmond, now I take great credit in this. Obviously, it's captured on TV because AFLW is covered, obviously. But I was very proud. I was sitting at Icon Park in the corner of the goal square, and while she was playing for Richmond, Stella Reid kicked this stellar goal, as you'll hear. And I'll just show you all this, Brad, as well.
Sure.
Hi. Oh, yes. Boom. Unbelievable. And I got it on camera too. That's one for the highlights reel for sure. Boy, oh boy, wowee.
Yeah, boy, oh boy, wowee, indeed.
Oh, mate, Stella's a star, and we actually threw her forward for the first time on the weekend as well in the last quarter. And when she first came to us, I thought she had some traits to play across half back, and I think her performance in the first couple of weeks have really backed that up. But we needed a bit of a spark up forward on the weekend, so we threw her forward in the last quarter, and of course she comes out and kicks the first goal, and then Nike gets a free kick in the goal square, and Stella goes to play on in the last one and just gets caught. But she could have had 2 goals in the first sort of 10 minutes of that last quarter. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she's a forward, but that goal was outstanding, and she's super talented and extremely crafty around goals. That's for sure. She's got a beautiful left boot. So that's some good filming there too, mate. Well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I didn't play the whole clip, so I keep repeating myself, and then I used the catchphrase. I think I wonder where I got it from. What a stellar goal from Stella Reid.
Oh, genius. I love it.
And I suppose some good help there from Mon Conti, who was the Richmond player in the goal scorer. They just let that bounce through. And speaking of superstars, that's what Mon Conti is. Now, the VFLW competition, Brett, I feel like obviously there's always a lot of debate about, the quarter lengths, right? And we're just talking about this off camera. Do you feel like obviously it's a flat 20? I'm sure if this stretches, it obviously stops for a little bit. But a lot of, general play after goals, ball going out of bounds and everything like that, when a player's got cramp or whatever, the clock generally continues to keep going, doesn't actually stop. Do you feel like that's a thing that should be implemented, where the time should actually generally just stop? I know it's the same at some other state league levels, and even in bits and pieces in AFLW games. Do you feel though it should actually stop so it doesn't invite time wasting and everything like that? And also on the grand scheme, it also will help the scores drastically improve because the time's not continuously going.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that we should be continuing to do. Look at improving the game and how we can get more scores. I think is always an improvement, and something that we should always be looking at. So I think rule changes is something that the AFL has got to continue to look at and analyse as we go through. In terms of the times, it's not something that I spend a great deal of time thinking about. It is what it is. Some weeks it works in your favour, and I wish there had been another 5 minutes in the game on the weekend so we could get back in front. But it is what it is for me, and we coach our players according to that, and they know that. So whenever unless there's an injury or something, the clock just doesn't stop. It just keeps going. So you can sort of manipulate it, I guess, in your favour. But some weeks it works in your favour, and then other weeks it doesn't. So it's a tricky one. I totally understand your point. I don't know of too many other competitions where it does just stop at 20 minutes flat. So maybe it's something I'm sure that they'll continue to look at and evaluate it as we go through.
For sure. Now, in terms of when the season starts and everything like that, obviously, you hear some talk about AFLW should be more aligned with that in terms of like play the same, like what the men's would do. How are you with that? And would that be something you feel like there'd be too much complications, or would that be something you wouldn't mind where it kind of aligns, or at least is closer in gap? Because obviously there's a time gap in between both comps.
Look, there's so many moving parts with this, and the time of the season, the AFLW. I think that's probably the first thing that has to be locked in and concrete. And I'm not sure whether it is just yet, but I think they're getting closer to that. And I know the VFLW season's moved and aligned a little bit more with this year, which I think is a really good thing. Excuse me. I think that the more that they're aligned, I tend to think that that'll be a positive thing. So we get more games into those players that are missing out on AFLW games. I know, having been involved in the scrimmages that they run, where you play, 3 players from one team and 4 players from another, and you get a couple flying in from Sydney and from Brisbane to play. So it's a really tricky position to be in. So I think the more games that we can get into players, the better the end product will be. So if we can start to align them more, now I'm not sure what the answer is and the time frame around that, and I've seen so many different suggestions around it, but I think if we can start to align the seasons a bit more, then it's only going to help the game grow, and I think that's what everyone wants in the end.
Sure. Who would you say is some of your favourite players to coach or player to coach?
Oh, great question. Well, look, very good question. I've got a lot of favourites, and I can't pick out one. But I've had really good relationships with all of the players, and I think that I've since first coming to North, I brought a couple of girls across from there in Alana Barber and Renee Ting. So I've had sort of long positive relationships with them since my time at Essendon, and both fantastic people, first and foremost. And, I consider both of them as really good friends of mine as well, and very fortunate that they're just great footballers as well. So Renee, obviously our captain this year, and Barb's does a fantastic job with her leadership within the program as well. Look, Maddie DeCosmo is just another one that comes to mind in there as well. I mean, what she's been able to do in her short amount of time at the club. I mean, premiership player in her first season with us, best and fairest winner, just an incredible person, and someone that we're extremely fortunate to have. And they're the types of players that that you can just rely on each and every week to get the job done. So really fortunate to have them. And what I probably love most about those girls, and a lot of the others that we have at the club as well, is just how competitive and how hungry they are for success, both individual and team. And I'm constantly in communication with those girls, and just trying to work out how we best can support the group and how we can get the best out of everyone. So, it's a tough one because I love them all. But, I guess I've had some really good relationships with Renee and Barb's in particular for since before my time at North.
Sure. And obviously coaching in AFLW level, obviously you've been there and done that with the assistant coaching side of things. Would you love to go back into that landscape and be a head coach at the AFLW level?
Yeah, for sure. I think I said that my coaching journey will only continue as long as I'm enjoying it, and I've never really had a clear plan with it. I think once I landed at North Melbourne, I felt like this is an environment where I felt really comfortable and somewhere where I really wanted to be and continue to grow. So I'm just taking it one job or one season or one day at a time, but I do. And I think probably the more I've got into it, I've probably had a few more goals around it. So for me, the AFLW landscape at the moment probably just doesn't work overly well with full-time work. So a little bit tricky to sort of continue in that environment when the AFLW programs are now becoming more during the day. So very difficult to turn up to school and ask the principal for 3 days off a week. So that's a little bit tricky. So VFLW for me at the moment is a really good fit. I'd love to get back into AFLW one day, whether it's head coaching role or some other sort of full-time role, absolutely open and would love to do that. I feel like, I've built a pretty good resume now in my coaching career, and I love it, and I'm really passionate about helping the girls, and really love this AFLW and VFLW space. So who knows where it will go next? It's a really difficult one to predict, but
Yeah.
I'll keep doing it as long as I enjoy it.
That's right. And in particular, the VFW head coach in terms of the state game, obviously you had that very recently, get a good win over SA pretty comfortably in a way as well from the scoreboard at least. What was that experience like being told you're going to be the head coach, and how was it too selecting the team and narrowing it down? Because you look at that team, it was filled with stars everywhere, and there's so many stars that weren't even included in that.
Absolutely. It was that was an incredible experience, and extremely grateful, and I was really honoured to be named as the inaugural coach of that team. One of the highlights of my career, absolutely. So very honoured. When Sam called me from the AFL, he said, you're going to be the head coach. I was pretty emotional about it, to be honest, because it's not something that it wasn't even a possibility a few months prior to that. So it wasn't even something that had been on my long-term radar or anything. It was just something that was brought up to me recently, and very fortunate to be the head coach, and had a fantastic support staff around me as well, which was great. And I guess the selection process was really difficult. I feel like I have a really good understanding, and I'm across pretty much all the players within the VFLW, and you have to be if you want to do your job well at VFLW level. So my knowledge and understanding of all the players, particularly in 2024, was really high. And then, getting asked to pick a team with so many new players coming into VFLW that hadn't even played VFLW before, and then getting asked to, I guess, assess AFLW talent against a lot of VFLW players. So there was, I received a bit of feedback about picking some of the players that hadn't even played VFLW before. But I mean, look, they've all played VFLW now. If the game was played a few weeks later, they all would have been playing VFLW. So we just tried to pick the best possible team that we thought. And there's always differing opinions on players and whether they should have been picked or whether they shouldn't. But end of the day, we picked the strongest possible team that we could, and we could have picked another team with totally different players, and we still would have been really happy and content with that as well. I mean, there was so many stars that we weren't able to squeeze into the 21, and it was such a balance. But we were able to go away to Adelaide and get the result, which was the main assignment.
That's right, for sure. Obviously, as I was going to say, how hard was it going to juggle picking the AFLW players that had just been let go from their AFLW clubs and balance it with the VFLW players? Obviously, you mentioned about the dislike with some of those players. How did you try and balance it, though? And did that affect you in terms of picking certain players or additional more in quantity of ex-AFLW players compared to the ones that weren't in?
It wasn't really something that we discussed. It was more so we just tried to pick the best possible team on I guess all the knowledge that we had. So picking players, it's really difficult because you get told that all of the players that are on a VFLW list are available for selection, but all you're comparing them to is their AFLW form. So you're comparing AFLW form to VFLW form, which is really quite a difficult thing to do. But we were really comfortable with the team that we had, and there's always going to be players that are the 22nd, 23rd, 24th players and just miss out. But end of the day, we just tried to pick the best possible team with a bit of balance in there as well. So you got to consider a whole range of different things when you're looking at the team. And there was many players that we had in the 50 that we would have been really comfortable with. Players outside the 50, there was so many that were stiff to not being there as well. So it's a really difficult thing, but as I said, we felt really comfortable with the team that we had, and I felt like we were able to prove that in the result in the end as well.
For sure. Do you feel like when you were selecting the side, in terms of forgetting about if they're ex-players or not, about the role they kind of play? Because obviously sometimes you'll see these type of teams in any form of footy at any level where, say, there's 10-star mids, but then some of them are having to play forward or everything like that. How does that part go into it as well?
Yeah, it's always a tricky balance, and it's there was a few players we had to probably play out of position a little bit just so we could get them into the team, because you want to try and pick the best players. So I had to stick a couple out on the wing and across half forward, and have them rolling down through the forward line. So it's always tricky, but we tried to absolutely pick the best team that we thought could win. So you got to find a balance between it all. And it is a really difficult process to go a part of, and I guess a lot of it's opinion based. We try and use a lot of data within the selection process as well, but I mean sometimes you're comparing apples to oranges, so that can be tricky. But we were really comfortable with the team that we picked in the end, and yes, you got to have a balance of mids and forwards and backs and rucks and wings and everything. But we felt like we were able to get it right in the end, which was the main thing.
Sure. And I mean, if you look at all the Australian teams in AFL or AFLW or anything, they seem to put midfielders there anyway. So what's the difference if you've done it? And then technically on top of the argument you mentioned before, Brett, as well about more AFLW players on it. Well, now Maddie Torpey is an AFLW player at Carlton. So technically that's another one they can say you put on there.
Absolutely. Look, Meg McDonald's one from Casey that springs to mind. I know she hadn't played the wing before, but she was one that we really wanted in the team, but we struggled to get her in such a star midfield group. So really difficult to get them all in. But I know that if we offered someone like Meg the opportunity to play again on the wing, I'm sure she would take it. So it was an interesting experience, and everyone's got differing opinions on all this stuff, but it was it was nice to be able to have the final say in it, and I guess get all the players that were really keen in to get into the team in. And Maddie Torpey was one, and the ruck position's obviously a really competitive one as well. And I know players like Killy Hardingham, Tamara Luke, who weren't available this year, would have been fantastic in that position. But Maddie Torpey, who we thought was such obviously a really young but really talented ruck in the competition. Not just a ruck, but I think what she's been able to do at ground level as well, and her follow-up work and ability to take marks around the ground has been outstanding. And I felt like that was obviously backed up when Carlton picked her up this weekend. So incredibly happy for her. I was fortunate to have an exit row seat on the flight over to Adelaide sitting next to her, so I got to have a bit of a chat to her about her family, and she's talking about how both her parents were teachers. I think one might have been a principal, and how got into footy late, so I hadn't played a whole stack of footy to be where she is now. And I sent her a text message this morning, just congratulating her. But I'm so proud and so happy for her and what she's been able to achieve. And I've got absolutely no doubt that she's going to have a long and fantastic career in AFLW.
For sure, I've had her on before, pre-Sandy Dragons when she was back then and she was very good back then, and then was unlucky as I thought at the time not to get a gig at that point. And then I even said to her that it'll eventually happen, and well, now it has. And then obviously last year at the Southern Saints, Sandy, whatever you want to call them there, she was probably the best ruckman before she did. I think it was a knee injury back in that mid part of the season. She was so damn good, not only just with hit out numbers, but like getting a lot of the ball. You mentioned the ground level, everything like that. She was doing that, then moved over to Box Hill for technically 2 games now, and then it doesn't shock me that she was picked up. I thought that was not if, it was when it would happen.
Absolutely. She destroyed us last year when we played against them. And when she was the Southern Saints last year, her and Tessa Boyd, I thought were outstanding against us. And it was she did a brilliant job against us last year. And there's absolutely no doubt. No surprise to me that she's on an AFLW list right now. So she deserves every bit of it.
For sure. Now, this might be a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but obviously when picking the side, how much is the recruiting North hat on a little bit to see some players more first-hand? And any pictures when the team was assembled together or after the game?
Yeah, of course. Look, and it's hard. I think the players that you're always going to have some sort of unconscious bias towards them. But I guess it works against players as well. So the more you sort of work with them, the more you see their flaws as well. So I think, there was, I think we had 6 North girls in the team, and, I was extremely, every single one of those girls absolutely earned their spot and deserved their spot within the team. So, you could have argued that there could have been more in there, and we were comfortable with the team that we selected, and the North girls that we had in the team, we felt played across all 3 areas of the ground, and I thought all did a brilliant job on the night. So we were extremely lucky, and I guess having some success last year and starting off this season pretty well as well sort of backs that up. Look, it's always a really tricky one picking the side, but I felt like all those girls, absolutely all those girls deserved their spot in the team. They did a brilliant job, and and yes, there was some photos after the game, of course. So I think every team got their own little photo after the game as well. So yeah, it was great. It was really good to see.
For sure. I sort of feel more for you, Brett, so I really appreciate you making some time to come on here. I really appreciate it. Now, in terms of going back to just quickly going back to the recruiting side of thing, Brett, how aggressive do you go in your approach, and how early do you go? You mentioned, I think it was Tess, I think it was saying about, as soon as it was able to talk to her, you would. How early and how quickly and how aggressive do you go in trying to approach players? And do you feel like sometimes the way you've gone sometimes helps and can have its disadvantages, or has it been pretty good every time, the strategy that you've gone with?
It's a good question. I think that, and you don't know because each player's in a different position. So some players coming off AFLW lists, you have to tread a little bit carefully. There's obviously been a bit of a roller coaster of emotions for them, I'm sure. So it's a tricky one where you don't want to go too early, but you also don't want to leave it too late where they get snapped up by other clubs as well. So I know that there are other clubs out there that go a lot more aggressive than what we do. But I feel like what we've been able to do and what we talk to our players about is providing them a really strong, challenging environment where they can all learn and grow and develop. And we're really comfortable in the fact that we don't need to talk about other clubs or anything, but we're really comfortable in what we provide at North Melbourne, and we're really proud of the fact that we provide such a fantastic program. I mean, we have all of our girls as our AFLW train-on girls come from our VFLW program last year, and I think that talks to the quality of our VFLW program. I'm so fortunate to have such an incredible coaching staff with us, and Nick Devereux, who's our senior assistant coach in the VFLW. He's also works at the club full time, and is our backline coach, the AFLW program, and is just an amazing person and a wealth of knowledge that he shares. So we have really good crossover. And I guess it's one of the selling points that we have really, really strong coaching group and support staff. So it's hard, you don't know whether it's going to be too early for some players when you approach them, but you also don't want to get too late, because I know that there's some clubs out there I mentioned that go really hard, really early, and really aggressive with it. So you don't want to miss out. But we try and talk to players and build connections along the way. And it's a tricky one. And there's no right or wrong answer. And sometimes you do get it wrong. But that's all part of the process.
For sure. How much thinking is it when you're trying to recruit players? Because I feel like sometimes, maybe not at your level, but from the public, they must be like, okay, that AFLW player got delisted, you must pick them up because they're automatically better than, say, someone from another VFLW club or coming from local, or someone in Caitlin's case, you mentioned about coming from interstate. How much think process does it go into that, like when you're trying to balance it out? Because some people go, oh, we'll just get the ex-AFLW players, they'll instantly make it better, when that's not necessarily the case. Obviously, it would help where they came from, but it doesn't always work.
No, you're right. And I think that every player will serve a different purpose, and we put a lot of thought into who we recruit into our program. It's definitely not just a cast the net out to everyone. We just don't do that. It's not our policy. So we absolutely think about, and we do our research, and I'm really open with the girls that I talk to, that we're trying to bring into the club, and we say, look, we'll talk to a few other people about you, and or we have spoken to people about you and they've said this about you. What do you think? Look, we absolutely do our research on every single person that we bring into the club, because the last thing you want to do is bring a person that doesn't fit your culture or doesn't fit your environment that you're trying to create. So, and I think it goes both ways. Like, we're not a club that will suit everyone as well, and that's okay. Like, we try and bring in really good people and help them along with their journey, but it's okay if we're not the club for you as well. And there's a lot of great clubs out there, so we're not a club that will hold it against you. And even it was just great to catch up with some of the other players that we tried to bring. Brooke Plummer was a player, for example, that chose to we did chat to, and great to catch up with her after the game. And there's no hard feelings or anything like that. It's just footy. So always try and maintain really good relationships with the players that we catch up with and talk to. But any players that get recommended to us from our AFLW crew to chat to, we always try and follow those up. Because we just want the best for our AFLW program, because end of the day, we're trying to feed and support them. So any players that get brought to our attention by them, we try and follow and chase them up and have a conversation. And sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But we always try and maintain really strong and positive relationships with everyone we talk to.
For sure, absolutely. No one at any level, even if it's AFLW, AFL, whatever, not 100% of people you talk to, you're not going to get every single person across. It just wouldn't be physically possible because you'd be talking to not a few, you'd be talking to heaps of people. So it never always pulls off, does it?
No, absolutely not. And all we do is we talk about the program that we provide and what we can offer them as a player. And sometimes it's the right fit, and sometimes there's other things that come into it as well. So and there's never any hard feelings with any of this stuff. It's footy, and we just try and offer players a new home from where they've come from, and hopefully it's something that they want to come to. But if it doesn't fit, then that's okay as well.
That's right, and not necessarily just about Brookie, but anyone. Doesn't mean because you've had a chat with someone that doesn't happen, doesn't mean it can't happen next year, the year after that, or whenever. It could come back and could happen. I'm sure at some clubs there's examples of someone that's tried poaching someone maybe 2 years ago and they've ended up coming 2 years later. You just never know.
Absolutely, and look, to me, like, footy's so much. It's so much more about just kicking a ball around, and I always try and be a good person, and my parents raised me. I feel really well, so I always just want to have good relationships with people and continue to build connections and build relationships with people, regardless of whether they wear a North Melbourne jumper or whether they don't. Who knows where the coaching journey will take me next as well. So it's a really important thing. And as I said, there's never any hard feelings with any of this stuff. It's just footy. So absolutely we want to win, and we want to bring the best possible people and players into our program to help support it. But end of the day, everyone's got their own priorities as well, and that's absolutely fine.
Sure. Now, I feel like this topic's never really discussed from anyone, even in the bigger media. They don't really talk about it as much, especially people at state league level, and that's like opposition analysis. I feel like that's not taught too much, and because the coverage isn't as bigger as, say, at the AFLW level, for example, how much opposition analysis coverage and footage can you get? Do you send people out to games? Do you just watch the replays on the websites and everything like that? How do you try and do opposition analysis while obviously worrying about your own crew as well?
It's tricky because you'd love to be working full time in footy, but it's just reality is all of our staff pretty much have full time jobs or other jobs that they've got to tend to as well. So it's tricky getting everything done. But I at least try to watch the opposition game from the week before. I feel like I've got a pretty good understanding of most teams now and how they play or what they've been trying to do over the last 12 months. But there's just, there's so much change in VFLW. Sort of, you never know week to week or season to season what teams are going to throw out. So, I mean, if we had played Essendon the week before, I mean, there was 12 changes or something like that. So you come up against a totally different team. So really difficult. And so on a week like that, maybe we should have done more opposition when I think about it. We lost the game on the weekend, but it's really difficult to predict. But at the same time, we try and have some understanding of what the opposition are trying to do and what we can do to sort of stop it. So I will absolutely watch the game from the week before. We get that downloaded, and I'll just download and watch that at some point to provide a bit of an opposition report for the players on the Thursday night, and we'll go through that. If we can, I'll get out to a game, but it's always tricky to sort of get to two games depending on where they are and everything. So that's tricky as well. But at minimum, watch the game and then provide some sort of opposition report to the players on the Thursday.
For sure. I'm glad you mentioned that, because on my podcast this week, I mentioned that exact thing about the time, about when games start and about clashing. As you mentioned, it's hard to get to, especially when you all play at the same time or within an hour of each other, or the venues are so far apart. What do you feel with the structure of how the fixture is put out? And do you feel like they could fix that and tweak a little bit where they have more Sunday games to kind of spread it out a bit, or even just spread the times out? Because some of them, there's so many between 10 and 12 o'clock, like almost half the round, if not all of it, is in that same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the real diehard VFLW supporters who want to get out to multiple games, like I think it's a really difficult thing. I think the games on the weekend were all basically of the 7 games. So we had 6 games.
Yeah, besides Williamstown, it's all of them within 2 hours. Yeah,
they're all within 2 hours. So if you want to get out to multiple games, it obviously does make it really difficult. So I think it's a balance, and everyone tries to get for a coach like. Our first 2 games have been on a Friday, which has been great because next training session's on the Tuesday after that, so you get a little bit more extra time to get your training plans done and your vision done. So that always helps. So love playing on a Friday, which is nice. But
Yeah.
Saturday for the first time. I think we've got Sunday game this weekend, so it's always a little bit harder when you've got a Sunday game to try and get all your coding and stuff done prior to the Tuesday meeting. But absolutely understand the point that, if you want to get out to multiple games, then it's this weekend wouldn't have been the weekend to do it because they were all within 2 hours. So that was a tricky one for you.
Exactly. Well, I just thought about it now. So Sandy, the Collingwood, I was talking to you off camera about this. The first game I went to the Collingwood was at 10:05 at Vic Park, and then the Sandy goes at 1 o'clock at Icon Park. So through the trains, I just made the second game by 2 minutes. So I got very lucky, but it also helps though when you kind of go on a jog from a station instead of walking it. But it's definitely very hard, Brett. It's very hard.
Oh, well, mate, you're doing a great job, mate. So getting out to a couple of games a week is great work. So you're doing a brilliant job.
Appreciate that. Now, definitely the last one. I appreciate coming on, Brett. Some players at North Melbourne or even just the VFLW competition as a whole, they're kind of flying under the radar and don't get talked about as much. I mentioned Caitlin. I'm sure she would have been one, but who's some other ones you would have in that position?
Look, I think Charlotte Ryan is probably another one that we picked up this year from Sandy, I guess, or Southern Saints who were last year. She's probably one that doesn't get spoken about as much. And she's had a brilliant start to the season. And on the other wing, we've had Elizabeth Jackson, who's been such a solid performer at this level for so long. And I think both of those two have been incredibly strong for us the first couple of weeks. And really proud. And we were very lucky to get Charlotte across this year. And I think she's had a stellar start to the year. I think she had another 20 touches again on the weekend. And Elizabeth Jackson is one of those players that you can just continually put on a wing, and you just know that she's going to do her job each and every week. She doesn't say too much. She's very quiet, but we're so fortunate to have her. And you just know that she's someone that's just going to give it her all every single week and just play her role to the best of her ability.
Sure. Now I could keep going on and on, but I won't. Brett, it's been a pleasure having you on. Good luck this week against the Hawks. Hopefully, beat them finals again. We could be talking about a potential another premiership. But it's been a pleasure having you on, Brett. And let's see how he's going. See if you retain all your plays before the players get picked up again in the AFLW side of things. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much, Cooper. Really appreciate it. Yeah, hopefully we have a few more go up to AFLW, hopefully hopefully have another successful season. So I appreciate it all the time, and thanks very much.
No worries.